There are a lot of fall fragrance videos coming out, transitioning to fall, favorite fall fragrances, spicy fall fragrances, all of that. Fall happens to be one of my favorite seasons. I love everything fall. I love that it gets cooler. I love that the leaves change into these beautiful colors. I love making chili and cornbread. I love college football. I don't really love college football. I just like the spirit of it. Like, have you been to the stadium? I don't actually watch what's happening on the field. But I love the energy of college football, and I love college bands playing in the football stands. That's one of my favorite things. And I love bringing out my sweaters and all of that. I'm one of those people that loves pumpkin and everything pumpkin spice. Yes, I'm a freak. What can I say? But one thing that I associate with cooler weather, especially as we get deeper into fall, is being able to wear leather, like a light leather jacket or pulling out my leather boots and those kinds of things. Leather happens to be one of my favorite notes, or accords rather, in fragrances. Now, let me say this. I know that a lot of ladies are not into the leather. I respect that. I get it. Most people think of it typically as a masculine accord. And yes, I guess it is that. But there's something about the smell of leather that is very comforting and grounding to me. It's like of the earth, right? Like one of the most carnal things, leather. That's a whole nother conversation. I don't even know why I went there, you guys. But I like that it is of the earth and earthy smelling to me. And my favorite color is like the tobacco leathery brown. I love that. And I look for that color in clothing. I look for it in purses. I look for it in shoes. So what I have for you today is 12 leather fragrances. I have a bunch, but I had to narrow it down. So I picked 12 of my favorite leather fragrances, or fragrances that have a fairly prominent leather accord. The next 4 fragrances that I'm going to talk with you about are, to me, softer leathers and have enough femininity to them that if you're a lady out there and you're intimidated by leather as an accord, you may want to try one of these fragrances. The first is the classic Bottega Veneta. I'm showing you a little bottle here, which is super duper cute. I do have a full bottle on backup because I think that this is a really beautiful fragrance. So this has a top accord of leather, but it's a very soft, airy leather. It's not like a heavy leather. In other words, there aren't other notes in here that really sort of ground this down. It remains fairly light, a pretty sophisticated fragrance. This is a fragrance that I think is office appropriate if you spray lightly. And it's really, I don't know, there's something mature without being too mature, without going into like the vintagey range. It's also earthy and it has a little patchouli in it too. But it's just a soft, light, pretty leather fragrance that I think is great for most ladies, especially, or those of you, men can wear this, of course, who are just venturing into leather territory and you're just not sure what to pick up and you don't want a leather bomb. You may want to try Bottega Veneta by Bottega Veneta. Beautiful. This is one I'm going to tell you that I don't want out of my collection ever. I think I will always want a bottle of this. Another soft, leathery fragrance is Robe by Rihanna. This is ridiculously affordable. I think I purchased this huge bottle for in the $20-ish range, maybe a little over or a little under. And I find this to be such a soft, well-rounded, elegant leather fragrance. It has a little bit of fluff on the edges, if that makes sense. It's a little bit cloudy around the edges, softer, not hard. Even though the bottle is very linear, the scent in here is very soft and round, if you ask me. It has some musk in it and some powder to soften it up, and a little bit of vanilla as well. I know there are some fruity notes in here. Let's see what they are. There's plum. Well, there's plum and leather blossom. In the middle, the note is suede, but the accord is leather. For those of you that are not familiar, certain notes can combine to give you an accord or the impression of a certain smell. So even though there's a suede note in here, I get a very soft leather. I love this. It's like a soft, supple, gentle leather that's been broken in, surrounded by maybe even like a little bit of a lipsticky kind of scent. This is lovely and really nice for those of you that are intimidated by leather and want to try something in that range, but you don't want to venture too deeply in and you don't want to spend too much to figure out if you like a leather accord or not. Robe by Rihanna is a beautiful choice. Again, sticking with the softer leathers is one that really had to grow on me. When I first tried it, I just didn't understand all the hype around it. By the way, there is a video by a dear friend of mine here on YouTube, Yulia at scentsiblingscom.c.a. She posted a short video on why blind buying works for her. And this fragrance reminds me of that video. In the video, she talks about the fact that when you sample a fragrance, you don't get like a really true sense of what the fragrance is like. You get an idea of whether you might like it or not, but there's nothing like having the full bottle in hand and experimenting with it over time to see if it grows on you or not. We all know, those of us that blind buy know, there are some fragrances that are outright fails, and then there are others that once we give them an opportunity and really sit with them, we actually grow to love them, and they end up being like a staple in the collection. So this is Black Perfecto La Petite Robe Noir by Guerlain. I call this like my biker babe fragrance because it does have hints of sweetness in it that let it lean feminine instead of more on the masculine side. By the way, the Bottega and the Rogue ones also, I would probably say, are either dead center, sort of neutral, maybe leaning a little bit feminine. This one has some fruity notes that really help it out. It has cherry and it also has almond, which people don't really associate with being sweet. But when you think about cherry and almond together, almond lending that maybe like a little hint of creaminess and a little hint of powderiness to it, combined together, it's really nice. There's also a tea note in here and some rose that peeks through in the middle. This is, I say, a soft leather fragrance. It's a well broken in leather jacket, and it's also soft and subtle. It's not an overpowering scent at all, at least not to me. Now, mind you, for those of you watching that are younger, I am a little bit older in age, a little bit up there in years, and as you get older, your sense of smell dies down. So mine is a little bit weaker than maybe it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But to me, this smells a little bit softer than some of the other fragrances that I'm about to tell you about. I think this is a safe choice if you like cherry, if you like almond, and if you want to try out a soft leather fragrance that's a little bit edgier, but not quite deep into leather territory yet. Black Perfecto. This next one is another very affordable fragrance that has made the rounds on YouTube, and for good reason. It's Elizabeth Arden Fifth Avenue Royale. This entire big old bottle cost me less than $20, and I love it. It may not last the very longest. I get about a half a day's wear out of this, but nonetheless, it's really pretty, wonderful for date night. This is more into the realm of warm and spicy and leathery than the other ones that I shared with you. Yeah, it's sweet. It's sweet and spicy and deep and sultry, a little resinous. I really like this a lot. I think it is on the mature side, like a very much a date night kind of fragrance where you want to smell feminine and very sweet, but in a grown-up way, with some leather in the background. This is not heavy on the leather, but there's enough leather in there to give it just that little bit of edge. It's also warm and spicy and sweet at the same time though. This is a winner. I really like this a lot. Fifth Avenue Royale. Sticking in the realm of resinous, warm, sweet, and spicy kinds of fragrances, I have Valentino Myrrh Assoluto from Valentino. These bottles in this series are just gorgeous. Not all the bottles in the series have been winners for me, but this one I really like a lot. It has a main accord of vanilla with also amber, but leather is closely behind. It is so sweet and deep and feminine and lovely. It is like the hug of someone that may be wearing some leather or have like a big leather purse on their shoulder, but the person themselves smells like vanilla and sweetness, just sweetness, like candy, almost cotton candy. Once it dries down, this starts off a little bit strong because of the myrrh, but as it dries down, it is just like the sweetest, spiciest, most delicious scent. Next up is one that has quickly become one of my favorites. I fell in love with it when I first purchased it. It is Spirito Fiorentino. I loved the bottle. It intrigued me. So this was my very first Tiziana Terenzi fragrance. There's so much about this that I love. It has a main accord of leather. So now the fragrances that I'm going to talk with you about are really more predominantly leather than anything else. And this is one of them. But even though it's leather and we tend to think of leather as masculine, this is one of those fragrances that, depending on what you're wearing with it, how you carry yourself and all of that, can really come across quite feminine. It is super strong. This is one of those fragrances where you just have to spritz 1, 2, 3 times at the most and head out the house, and you are going to get complimented by other people who want to know what you're wearing. I get the relationship to Baccarat Rouge 540. There is some saffron in here, and there's ambergris, and also there's leather in the base, as well as sandalwood, oak moss, and more. It's like spun sugar with the saffron, with the leather, with some other spices, and a little bit of florals in there. The florals to me don't really peek through as much as everything else, but this is a really complex fragrance that I adore. By the way, quick tip for those of you that have this, try layering it with Lost Cherry from Tom Ford or any Lost Cherry dupe. It really doesn't matter which one, and see what happens. Tell me what you think. All right, we're getting into heavy leather territory here. This next one is newer to my collection, and I spritzed it on and immediately, here's the thing about leather fragrances. When they're good, they're so good. Sniff them and just have this immediate, like visceral, amazing experience. Like, oh. So this next one is like that. One of those like roll your eyes in the back of your head kind of fragrances or whatever they're called. And it is Prada's Desert Serenade. Okay, this is not for everyone. Let me just be clear. Don't go out blind buying this. First of all, it's not an inexpensive fragrance. This is a costly one, but so worth it. So delicious. Now, you guys know how I feel about cost in fragrance. If you want to charge me a lot for a fragrance, I'm going to need to be fairly blown away. And this one does that to me, my tastes. And here we are in a leather, video, leather and fragrances video. So take that for what it is. If you like honey, if you like spice, and if you like leather, and the idea of combining those together just curls your toes, you might want to get your nose on Prada Desert Serenade. Is it the most projecting beast mode fragrance? No, but it's good enough. And the smell is just so delicious and intoxicating to me. I get this really deep, like the most ambery colored honey kind of scent. Have you ever had fresh honey that's just really thick and viscous? That is what this reminds me of. Imagine that honey drizzled on some leather fresh out of the factory that smells really pungent and strong. That is what I get out of Desert Serenade with some spices on top. Absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to wear this. This is one that I put on and I constantly sniff my wrist. In fact, I'm not throwing this away. I'm probably going to walk around the house after this video just sniffing this little blotter here. Beautiful. The next 5 fragrances are straight up strong leather with something else accompanying it. Next up is Bronze Wood and Leather from Jo Malone. Oh my gosh, amazing. If you like leather and woody scents, this is like second to none. This is another toe curler, okay? Another like get out your pom-poms and get excited because you're gonna get a lot of leather and a lot of wood in this fragrance. This is not a feminine fragrance, but I wear it. I like it and I think it's gorgeous. If you're a lady who's not afraid to experiment with masculine scents, this is beautiful. Bronze Wood and Leather. This is from Cologne Intense line from Jo Malone. Jo Malone, if you've watched me from the beginning, you know I was really hesitant to purchase Jo Malone because the fragrances are criticized as not lasting long. But this one, the ones in the black bottle tend to perform really well for me. This fragrance also has juniper and vetiver in it. The juniper gives it a little bit, to me, a little bit of greenness, a little hint of aromatic accord. And the vetiver sort of grounds it and gives it that like hay-like, earthy kind of scent. This is nice. Next up is one I probably should have put a little earlier in the video, but here we are. It is Santal Carmin from Atelier Cologne. Cologne. This is a little bit softer. It's a little closer to the skin, a little bit more intimate than some of the other fragrances that I've mentioned. Maybe it's a little bit more along the lines of Black Perfecto in terms of staying closer, like having a more intimate scent bubble than some of the others. I get a lot of leather out of this. There's saffron at the top and there's sandalwood in the middle. Leather is listed as the last accord on Fragrantica, but it's what jumps out to me the most. Now, woody is listed as the top accord, so maybe my nose is kind of intermingling those accords together to give me a strong leather accord. I think of this as a leather fragrance. That's what I get out of this, although there is a little bit of spiciness in here and a little bit of powder. There's also a vanilla accord in here that I think softens this up a bit. So of the bunch that I'm talking about in the second half of this video, this is maybe a little bit softer than the others, but it's still squarely in the leather realm, in my opinion. Santal Carmin Atelier Cologne. Very nice. This next cologne is from Lattafa, and I saw Adriana DC talking about this one and just knew I had to have it. I had looked at it before, but listening to her talk about it, I was like, all right, enough already. I'm going to add to cart. And I'm so glad I did. I think this is pronounced Qaa'ed, and it's from Lattafa, as I mentioned. This is a warm, spicy, leathery fragrance. It also has cinnamon and vanilla in it, so it's a little bit rounder and a little bit more like kitchen-ish, right, than some of the other ones that I've mentioned. Kitchen-ish. What the heck does that mean? I'm making stuff up. It smells like kitchen spices a little bit more than some of the others, but it's softened up with that vanilla. And can we just take a minute to talk about this packaging? It comes in the cutest little faux leather thing package, but then the bottle itself is just really neat. On the gaudy side, like many of my Middle Eastern fragrances, but I don't care. It's so gaudy that I love it. It's in that category for me, and I think it's beautiful. And by the way, this thing was less than $30. I think I got this on Fragrance by CA for 23 US dollars. Get out of here. This is gorgeous. Beautiful. Beautiful soft leather fragrance, heavy on the leather, but also nicely softened up by that vanilla and those spices. Very unisex. I think women can pull this, well, let me say that, unisex in my opinion. I think ladies who tend to only prefer fruitier or softer or more feminine scents will not think that this is unisex the way that I do, but by my standards, it's very unisex. And I just adore this. You guys, for 23 US dollars, you cannot beat this. Qaa'ed. This next one is from a line from Carolina Herrera that I have been nothing but thoroughly impressed with. It is Saffron Lazuli. The bottles from this whole collection are phenomenal. Really gorgeous, heavy luxe bottles with these gorgeous magnetic caps on them. These are pretty pricey and they're getting harder and harder to find as people are snatching them up on the gray market. If you want them and you see them, grab them, okay? Oh, this, when I smelled it, I immediately fell in love. It is a cleaner leather than the others. So what I mean by that is it's not surrounded, even though it has a main accord of warm and spicy. Yeah, I can get a little bit of that, but you know what this smells like? I gotcha. This smells to me like when you have a heavy leather coat on for the winter, and you have some gum on the inside pocket and that gum warms up with your body temperature, the way that the two smell together. Like imagine like juicy fruit mixed with the leather of your coat, mixed with like a hint of spice. There's just something so crisp yet beautiful and round about this to me. I adore this. I adore this. This is also not for everyone, not a blind buy, but if you are adventurous and the sound of juicy fruit bubblegum mixed with leather is appealing to you, maybe with a hint of spearmint also. Maybe you had a spearmint stick of gum in there too, and all of that kind of mixed together to waft into one fragrance. That's a little bit of like what Saffron Lazuli smells like. I adore this. This is right up my alley. I love it. I can't get enough of it. Another one that I'm probably going to keep this little blotter and just walk around the house sniffing it. I'll just have it near me while I'm cooking dinner and occasionally sniff it. Oh, just beautiful. Saffron Lazuli. The last one is the most powerful of the bunch. This is not for the faint of heart. In fact, if you are a daredevil or have friends that are daredevils, buy this and see who can spray the most of this and still live. It is Swiss Arabian Oud Aswad. Oh my goodness. I learned about this fragrance through Ange at 50 Cents UK, purchased it, sprayed a little bit on my husband in the kitchen, walked across the kitchen a good like 15 feet away and was like, what in the world is that nuclear atomic bombastic fragrance? And it is Oud Aswad. This one here, the whole room will smell you. In a good way. It is a really beautiful fragrance, maybe the most masculine of the entire bunch that I've shared with you. Phenomenal. It's woody also. It has a rose note in it. It has patchouli. It has cumin. It has coriander. It has oud. This here, this is all kinds of a bomb. Also quite affordable for what you get in here. You get this enormous bottle with this beautiful, gorgeous, oudy, leathery, rosy fragrance for, I think I got this in the $60 range, maybe $50. Phenomenal. Really strong, really potent. Don't go messing around with this, okay? Only buy this if you are a daredevil and you like to fill up a room with a beautiful fragrance. It is powerful. Those are the top 12 leather fragrances that I pulled from my collection. What is your favorite leather fragrance? Drop it down in the comments. Thank you kindly for spending your time with me today, and I will see you, my friends, in the next video. May you smell wonderful and leathery this fall. Take care.